Hey songwriters, welcome back to At Home Songwriting. Today I'm excited to welcome another guest, another songwriter artist interview. Today we're going to be talking to an artist and songwriter from Toronto. He went from being a burned out mathematician to being an indie soul artist. It's going to be a fun conversation. You won't want to miss it. So let's jump in and introduce you to Jeremy Voltz. Jeremy, welcome to the channel.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I had found your music online through some, music groups that we're both connected to, and I listened to your music and I was like, wow, this guy's got some really cool, like indie soul, like really cool vocals, like great songwriting. I'm like, I want to have him on the channel. So I reached out to you and here we are.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's exciting.
So in your bio, it says you are a mathematician turned indie soul artist. So what does that mean?
Yeah, it means that I got really sick of school, and, and like, because I came up to Toronto, which is where I'm based, and I finished a PhD in mathematics that like just destroyed my soul for the last like 3 years of it. It was so hard, and I love teaching. Because I was doing that at the same time. But I realized that the thing I liked about teaching was actually kind of just performing and standing in front of 200 people and delivering my thing. And
Cool.
so when I finished that degree, I was like, okay, like screw this. I need a break. I'm going to take a year and I'm going to try to do music. And I'm going to try to release some music and see how it goes. And at the end of that year, I will like evaluate if like this seems like something I could do more than a year. And I haven't looked back. It's been 5 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
hmm
So let's rewind then. So before math,
hmm
were you into music prior to that, or what role did music play in your life prior to that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, other than like a horrific stint on the clarinet in middle school, that I just hated, it was drums. I fell in love with, there was like a guy moved
Cool.
away out of our school and they needed a drummer. And I was like, oh God, please, I want to burn this clarinet. Let me do drums. And my parents were weirdly supportive of me drumming and they bought me like a beginner drum kit. And I just became obsessed. Like I wanted to be a session drummer. I was really committed to drumming. And then I eventually was like, what's the singing thing about? So like, yeah, I mean, I was hard into drums first. And I think drums really influenced the way I sing, and kind of I'm a if you try to sing along with my songs, you realize like, oh, this is really syncopated and there's
Mm,
a lot of kind of difficult rhythms that I sort of just tend to do naturally, I think, from drums and this groove-based background. But yeah, so I learned to sing, and then I was like, drumming and singing's weird. I should learn guitar. And then I did that. And then I was kind of playing open mic nights and stuff like that in throughout high school. But I didn't
cool.
take it super seriously, and I was just playing covers. I'd try to write songs; they were horrible and just cringy. Yeah.
So what were you listening to at that time? Like did that period in your life influence what you're doing now?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the most influential album was when a friend showed me Jeff Buckley's Grace. That
Okay.
album, I was just like, this is the best male vocalist I've ever heard, and I just wanted to sound so much like him, and I would like try to imitate his vocals so much. But then,
Awesome.
um, yeah, I also like got. I was pretty into John Mayer. Room for Squares, his first album had like come out,
Yeah.
and I was
Yep.
like, this is very good songwriting. I liked Billy Joel a lot too, but I wasn't. I was much more of a music guy. I feel like there are music people and there are lyrics people, and I was not a
Yeah.
lyrics person. I did not listen to lyrics at all. I was just like pure
Cool.
music. So, yeah, I
Well,
was,
you were still
and
listening to, I mean, the stuff you were listening to was musical and lyrical, so you kind of
yeah,
landed well.
it's true. Yeah, I did. I got lucky that way. And then I was listening to a lot of kind of like Stevie Wonder and Otis Redding and things like that. A lot of like soul music. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So then obviously you decided, hey, you want to try this music thing. You're still doing it, full-time musician. Are you writing most of your own stuff at this point from a songwriting perspective, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I do tend to write for myself, and I usually am a solo writer, but I was lucky to sign a publishing deal during COVID, and my publisher has set up some like songwriting camps and co-writes and some big writes, and that's great. And it's generally for me as an artist, which is cool. I've done a bit of writing for other artists,
Yeah.
but that can be it's a fun challenge. I'm not great at it yet. Like I'm trying to be like, what would this person say and how would they say it? Because I'm a bit
Yeah.
set in my ways in terms of the way I say things. Yeah. So, but I've had a lot of people write for me, which is neat during these co-writes, and that's cool too to have kind of somebody looking over your lyrics and being like, what about this? What about that? Yeah.
So I know when you are writing for another artist, you do have to take on their voice, you have to take on their, kind of what they're about. How do
Mhm.
you describe what you're about?
Good question. My general and any songwriter will tell you there's no like pipeline system that works for every song. Every song's
Yeah.
different, but generally speaking, I write songs to that are conversations to people in my life that I don't have the courage to actually have in real life. It's like these are all the things I would love to say to you, but I never will. But I'm going to put it in a song, and I was so about that that I would, even as like a songwriting exercise, I would like open up an email to that person. I would type in their name, and I would just be like, "Hey, blank." And then I would just write all the things, and I would, of course, never send this email. And then I'll go and I'll look through and be like, "That's a good line." I'll take some time and then look at it. So yeah, like my songs are really like conversations between me and someone I love or care about. There might be a hard conversation, it might be a delightful conversation, but it's something I really need to say and want to say. And then I think that's just really resonated with people because they hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do the people that you have been writing to, do they know it sometimes, or is it a little bit vague where they might not know exactly who that is?
Generally, it's pretty vague because I try to keep it relational, but there have been a couple people like my best friend knows that I had a song one day at a time that ended up kind of blowing up and becoming an anthem for people, and my best friend does
Yeah.
know that was to her.
Awesome.
She didn't when I wrote it, but yeah,
Yeah, so that I read in your bio also led to a children's book. I
it
think I had
did.
read.
Yeah. So that was I got really lucky with that song. My first album, it was on a EP that I made, and I actually made this song as part of a production music library. Somebody,
Cool.
uh, yeah, this Karen Nightingale who works for APM Music, she saw me play live. She was coming to see a band after me, but she got there early and saw me play and was like, "Let's make a record." And this is before I'd released like one song at this point. But so I made this record for her, and I wrote this song one day at a time, and because she really believed in the song, she loved it, she was able to place it in some really great spots, and it was in a viral animal rescue video by the dodo.
Oh, wow.
The dodo does, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's sort of this homeless dog that people had taken in and taken care of, and they used the song in the video, and this thing had like 40 million views or something on YouTube.
Wow.
And like everybody in the comments is like, "What is the song? What is the song? What is the song?" And that, I was trying to answer everybody in this like huge comment thread.
You're like, "It's
Uh,
me, it's
it's
me."
me, it's me, it's Jeremy Voltz. Hi, it's like, and so that then I think you brought a big following to like Spotify, and then Spotify sort of noticed that people were really listening to the song and kind of gave it love. And people were reaching out so much about how much the song meant to them and how it was helping them through really tough times. And I realized like it, I wanted a physical manifestation of that. I wanted something that somebody could have on their coffee table, and when they're feeling down, they didn't just have to put on the song. They could like look at this thing. They could read it to their kids. They could share it with their family. That would have that same feeling of like, man, it's just this is a hard day, and I just like need
Yeah.
a bit of help to get through it. And so I found this amazing watercolor gouache artist, Julie Louise Pereira. She's Toronto based, and like she just blew me away with these illustrations, and the book is awesome. And I'm like, it's the proudest thing I've ever made. Yeah.
So I had another guest on the channel, Katie Tessman. She's from here in the Minneapolis area, and she's a
Hmm.
singer-songwriter, and she's turned some of her songs into books as well. So
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, so you're like the second person I've talked to that's done that. That's a really cool idea.
I mean, yeah, I think it's great because again, it's like you can like hear the song, read along with it, too, and it's like a music video, in a way where you're like, I want to tell a visual story that, you know, supports the song,
Yeah.
but just through a different medium, you know, and I like physical things.
How has signing a deal or deals affected you creatively?
Um, it it's to be honest, it gives you license, I feel like, you know,
Okay.
somebody else that you don't know, a stranger, has said, we believe in what you're doing enough to maybe give you an advance to help support you. Go make cool stuff. And it's like, oh, suddenly that's my job. It's hard when you're starting out as a musician. It's hard to think of your job as writing songs and being a creative. Like, and a
Yeah.
lot of times you get bogged down with the jobby parts of it, like the marketing and posting on social media and, you know, all this,
Yeah.
writing your bio, blah blah, things that feel like a job. And yeah, and so signing and having a team behind you that's just like, how can we support you so that you can write some great tunes? It gives you that like fire and like that calling. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So do you have people that do the marketing and like all of that stuff? So you're not like a one man band with that, or do you still kind of do a lot?
I do have a marketing team, but I do a lot.
Sure.
I think like as an artist, you are your brand, you are your message. You know, I'm a small business owner, and the product I sell in many ways is Jeremy Voltz. It's my
Cool.
music, but it's also me and my personality and who I am. And you can't, it's very hard to let somebody run that ship without you, or
Yeah.
without a hell of a lot of oversight, to the point that it's easier if you just do most of the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, um, being an artist means you are everything: graphic designer, marketer, like, you know, you're doing it all. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who watch this channel because they're newer songwriters or they're aspiring to do kind of what you're doing, where being a full-time musician might be their goal, or maybe getting a publishing deal, those types of things.
Mhm.
What sort of advice do you have for people that are, in that beginning stage?
It's a good question. I mean, I think everybody in the beginning stage has probably heard this 100 times, but it's true. Just write more songs. You have to write. There's a game I like called Go, which is like kind of an ancient game. And they always say, lose your first 100 games as quickly as possible so you can start actually learning the game. And similarly, it's like, write 100 bad songs,
Yeah.
and then, you know, 101 might be okay. And doing that as quickly as possible. And then I think a lot of people are really scared to study songs. It feels like cheating, it feels like stealing. But I loved the exercise. It's a great beginner songwriting exercise where you write different lyrics over the rhyme scheme and meter of a famous song.
Yeah.
One of my songs that I released, I won't say what it is "Hey Jude," with, you know, new lyrics and a different melody, but in the same rhyme scheme and meter scheme.
Yeah.
So like, study what works and really play around with it, figure out why. I think that's why because I was horrible at songwriting, and that made me so angry. I was like, why do I,
Yeah.
what do I love about this song? It's like some sort of magic that makes a good song that nobody can put their finger on, and that drove me crazy. And I just became obsessed with, you know, studying a song, figuring out what I liked about it. And you'll never really be able to put your finger on it, but you get closer.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say some of that stuff, because obviously this whole channel is about the craft of songwriting, and
Mhm.
I teach online workshops and stuff, and you'd be surprised how much like sort of like nasty grams I get on like social media that say you can't teach people to write songs, like you either have it or you don't. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
it's of course a skill. Any art is a skill. Like there are art degrees. If I want to be a visual artist, I can go to school for it and get a degree in art, and I'll study other people's art, and that'll help me figure out what I want to say and my point of view and how to do it as best as I can. I think it's just really, yeah, I think it's a way of somebody rationalizing so that they don't need to work to do the work personally. They're
Yeah.
like, because there are other people, a lot of people are like that with music theory too. They're like, I don't want to learn music theory because then, I'll get, I don't know, it's some dark side or something. And it's like, you can ignore anything you learn, but it's going to help your vocabulary and it's going to just help you be more well-rounded and break you out of boxes and patterns that you're maybe stuck in and you don't know you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a skill. It needs to be practiced. It needs to be honed. And I think I'm writing better songs now than I ever have because I'm really consciously studying it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Um, are you where you want to be songwriting wise?
Good question. Good question. I'm I'm getting there. I think I wish that I think everybody wishes that inspiration would strike a little more often.
Yeah.
Um, like when I have, because honestly, I don't hear this a lot, and I think it's a sort of dirty secret that I do think the idea is the most important thing. You need to have a great idea, and I think I think it's important to not to write a song even when you don't have a great idea, as the just to practice and be like, cool, this is something other people have said better probably, but I wrote a song and it's good.
Yep.
But when you get that strike of inspiration in the shower where you're like, nobody has ever thought of this thing this way, and now I got to figure out how to write it. That's what makes a hit, I think, in a lot of ways, or can. Just finding that perfect way of saying something.
Do you
And
think, oh, sorry, I didn't mean
no,
to
no, no,
cut
that's
you
pretty
off.
much it. So I wish that struck a little more, but you know.
That's totally true. There is an author and a songwriter, Billy Seidman, has a book about the craft of songwriting, and he says the same thing. Like, if you have a good idea, you're like 50% of the way there. If
Mhm.
you have a better idea, you're like 75% of the way there. But if you have an awesome idea, your song's like 95% done. But I think you have to, like you said, you have to know how to take a less good idea or even a bad idea across the finish line. So when the golden egg does show up, you know how to handle it, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of my favorite songs in the world is "I Can't Make You Love Me If You Don't."
Yeah.
Bonnie Raitt. It's so good, and Justin Vernon does a piano cover of it that's like haunting, and I friggin' love it. But like that idea, that's it. Just "I can't make you love me if you don't" is like it
Cool.
has so much weight, even if you've never heard that song. Boom, and the songwriters did a fantastic job with the rest of that song. But like you hear that line and you're like, well, that's 90% done. That song, like from that
Right.
line, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so
That's
the
like
great
definition of a hook. That's the
yes,
hook. Yeah.
yes, and I don't have any melody. I don't have, but it's just a beautiful idea. Yeah.
So that song, actually, I don't know if you're aware, it started as a bluegrass song and it was actually an upbeat song
Hmm.
until I think one of the producers or somebody with Bonnie Raitt, they slowed it down and played it as a ballad. And then it was like, there it is.
The reverse that thing you do
Yeah,
from from that movie when they sped up that song. Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
cool. I know, like I read like an interview with the guys that wrote it, whose name I of course don't remember. I'm sort of bad with like songwriting lore, but
Yeah.
I think they had heard that line said in like an interview on a news station. Like someone was like, "Well, I just can't make her love me if she don't," something like that. Like, and they were like,
Yeah.
"That's brilliant." Yeah, so
Do you then, so where do your ideas come from?
yeah, I think it's I have an anxious, active mind that never stops thinking.
Okay.
And generally that thinking is in the form of anxiety, but there is some magic about the shower that like
Yeah.
something about the hot water that just allows your brain to disassociate, detach from all of your problems and troubles and to-do list, and then that activity just somehow bubbles up into like an interesting idea. It's
Yeah.
always the shower, pretty much entirely. Like,
Interesting.
yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So as you are getting ready to make like an album, do you think in albums and projects, or do you think in like I'm just gonna write a bunch of songs and then we'll figure out what to do with them later?
Definitely the second one. And
Okay.
I wish I was the first one a bit more, where it's like I have a whole concept and I'm gonna write the album. But honestly, it's like when I sit down to write a bunch of songs, like if it was like I've got 6 months to write an album, um, I'm gonna struggle with that because
Okay.
the songs, again, inspiration doesn't strike that often. And a lot of times, I'm going back to voice notes that might be 4 years old.
Wow.
um that where I was like, that was a damn good idea and I got to finish that song. And so a lot of times I'm taking the best ideas through my entire history as a songwriter, not necessarily from like a 6 month, like I want to write through this lens. um I'm not against it, I've just really never done it. Now the album I'm releasing now, I just released the first single to it, Miracles, but this album was a collaboration. So I worked with a producer in Montreal, and we co-wrote all the songs and he produced them. So I am very project based, but it's usually person to person of who I'm working with on that project. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Was that someone that you had worked with in the past, or how did that relationship come about?
It was it was great. So we did this artist entrepreneurship program through this beautiful not-for-profit that exists in Toronto. It's called Canada's Music Incubator. It's an 8-week program, and they bring artists and they teach them everything about running their musician business. And
Cool.
it's awesome. And I met him there, and I'm like, I don't think I like this guy. I mean, he's it's like I'm this like nerdy sort of shy guy. He was this like kind of beautiful pop star, worked out all the time, like sort of a guy. And uh but the last day he was like, hey, you're really great, do you want to come open for me at a festival in Quebec, and you can stay on my couch and we'll like try to make some music. And I
Cool.
was like, oh, this could be a bad week, I don't know anything about this guy, but like, why not, I got nothing else going on. And so I went up, stayed on his couch, and he was like, I want to try to produce a sound for you. Like he's like, he heard me sing and he's like, you have this like edge to your voice that I think would be really cool to bring out. And so we started working and we came up with the song Miracles. That was the first song that we wrote, and it was so cool. Like it's dark and the melodies are haunting and harmonically strange. Like there's some kind of like harmonic minor stuff that happens, and like these distorted synth basses, and it was modern and edgy and pop, but still me. And it just felt so good that I was like, okay, I got to come back here and we got to make another song. Um,
Awesome.
Now I've worked with people where the song sucked. We worked on a
Yeah.
song and it was like, cool, I'll never work with you again. Great. So
Yeah.
it was really just some magic of us working together, you know.
Do you then, so, and I guess how I would ask this question. So obviously you're full time. Is your goal as a musician to be like superstar level, or are you more in that I'm going to have my own business, I want to have a decent life, I'm just going to do, what supports my lifestyle, and I do what I like, and
Yeah,
maybe it's a little of both. What's your kind of goal with all of this?
that's a great question. It's a journey, right? Like, I mean, you're doing it over time, and you hit peaks and valleys of I love this to I'm burned out and I want to work in a brewery. To I mean, it's
Yeah.
this. And I think when I was growing up, it's like I could always sing the crap out of any song. Like, I was a vocalist first and foremost. Like that is what I would do, and I knew I was good at it, and I was confident in that. And
Yeah.
I wanted to be, I wanted to be a pop star. I wanted to be famous. I was like, well, then I got to learn to write songs. And then I was really, really bad at it for a really long time, which bothered me. And then eventually, you realize how hard this is, how absurdly unattainable that goal is. Um, and you lower, you're like, well, you know what? Okay, I want a sustainable career. I want this to be able to pay the bills, have enough royalties coming in that I can like live somewhat comfortably and continue to write songs.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and it's like, okay, that's good. And then I was like, well, I think I want maybe more than that. So it's somewhere in between. And then at some point, when you first start out, you're making songs and you're desperate for people to hear them. Like, you spend all this time. You're like, anybody listen, please. Like you're
Yeah.
begging people to listen to your music.
Right.
Um, and then it was like, oh no, I want to write a song that means something to people and not just my friends and family. That's my goal. I want to leave a mark musically on people. And then I kind of did that with One Day at a Time. That song spread to the world more than I ever thought it would, and more than I ever expected to leave a mark. And then my wife asked me like a week ago, she's like, "What are your dreams? What?" And I was like, "I think I maybe already sort of did it, and now I don't know." So yeah, I'm in a very privileged position, whereas like I got to write a song that means a lot to a lot of people, and that really was the goal.
Cool.
Mhm.
Back to Miracles.
Mhm.
What did that writing process look like?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I'm trying to think back. We started that so long ago, and then COVID just like slowed down the creation of this album to a halt. Like, yeah, so it was like 4 years ago that we wrote that song.
Wow.
Um,
And it just
yeah,
came out?
yeah, and it just came out. I've been sitting on it forever.
Wow.
Um, yeah, like co-writing is interesting, and co-writing with Oliver was really great. He is, I think because I was like, well, if I'm singing it, the lyrics have to feel like they kind of came from me. So I think I probably did a bit more heavy lifting on like lyrically. And Oliver was a really pure producer, which I liked, where it was a lot of like he'd be like, yes, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. Kind of it was like he was just really good at being like, that's awesome, that's awesome, that sucks, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I loved that. That is a great, because I think especially in Canada, here everybody's very polite, and politeness does not make great songs often. So you need to have a comfort with your co-writers to be able to be like, that's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do better. And all I love Oliver because we challenge each other, and I'm able to do that back, and then our ideas just go like that, and it's awesome.
I think that's the magic that we all hope to find in co-writers, right? Where you can trust them, it's not personal, like it's all about what's good for the song.
And it's not just even good for the song. It's like somebody recognizing if there's really mutual respect and trust and you love what each other does, then there's like, oh man, okay, that idea is bad, but you're on to something. And it's like recognizing that there is something great even in the bad idea, and then being like, what about this? And it's like, yes, that's what I wanted to do but didn't quite have the words. And like, so it's also recognizing that like brilliant nugget in what is potentially a bad idea, overall.
Cool.
Yeah, so the mutual respect and mutual trust is like key.
So did he then do all of the production on that song, or
Yeah.
what did that look like?
Yeah. And he was kind of learning production as we went. We were sort of like buying plugins to try stuff. Like it was really experimental. And that first recording, listening back, it's like, okay, it's a little rough. But once we had a good mix on it, we were able to kind of bring it up. But we were just trying all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, I don't know, we got into this kind of like Muse-esque sound design thing where it's like we want like gritty, we want hard hitting, we want punchy, and we were just kids in a candy shop, just trying everything out.
Well, I think your voice, like when I listen to your voice, like it sounds modern, but there's also something to it that sounds very traditional as well. And when I say traditional, there's like, it's that classic soul thing. And
Yeah.
and I think it's something that you're like, I'm jealous of because I don't know if it's anything you do. I mean, I just think some people are born with something different. So I love that you're kind of going with it. But when you hear
Yeah.
your voice, how do you describe your voice?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I definitely like I get the kind of soul Motown sound thing a lot. Like and I hear that. I recognize that.
Yeah.
And that's something I really am thankful for Oliver for noticing because that's what I heard my voice as. Those were sort of the songs I was writing. They were kind of like 70s blues or 70s sort of Motown soul music, but not as good as those songs because those songs are friggin' incredible. Um, and it took somebody like Oliver to be like it's like we need to change that up because if you're just writing songs that exactly fit this kind of like old that your voice has, like it's not there's nothing new here. There's nothing special. And so it was kind of taking that sound and then turning it on its head. And I think that was really interesting because uh, I I'm lucky. I've gotten to sing in this a cappella group. Oh, sorry, this a cappella 12 voice jazz a cappella group for like 10 years. They're called Countermeasure. They're my family. They're awesome. We tour around all over the world. And that has made me become like a vocal chameleon. It's like
Mm,
some songs I sing bass, some songs I sing tenor one, like boys choir style. Sometimes I beatbox. Like sometimes we mimic horns or strings or whatever, and
awesome.
we really focus in on like that kind of being a vocal chameleon. Um, and so through that group and through just experimenting, like now I can kind of do a bunch of different things.
Awesome.
And which there's the paralysis of too many choices, but but other than that, yeah, it's cool.
So do you think then the modern part that Oliver brought, do you think that showed up in the song itself, or was it more of a production style?
No, I think it's the song itself. I think like before I met Oliver, I tended to fill space too much with lyrics. Um, then like what happens at the beginning of Miracles, I would never have done before we met Miracles, where it's three words and then a bunch of space. Like, take my place, I'm not staying. And it's like I would never do that. I would never like I just felt like you had to constantly be talking or singing. Like so I think I think that really like causes you to lean in at the beginning. So that he has just a good like I'm going to call it a pop sensibility, but really it's kind of a hook sensibility. It's like
Nice.
what is going to hit the listener the right way? How is it going to hit the listener? And that was something I was as an artist that can be really hard because you're so personally attached to your songs. You're in there. It's hard to think about how will someone hear this?
Yeah.
And working with somebody else can really help there. So yeah, I think the song itself is much improved from working with them.
How far along are you on this new album?
The album is done and mastered and recorded, and so which is crazy. And so it's all kind of in this modern production sound that's like just gritty and hard hitting, and there's lots of cool harmonic stuff in there. So we're kind of going to release like a single every 6 to 8 weeks, and then the album's going to come out in the fall.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, I know that I've had other musicians on, and a lot of people ask me, and we don't have to go into like exact numbers and stuff, but as a full-time musician, are you making the most money from live performances, or where does the revenue come from?
Great question. I mean, yeah, the short answer is it doesn't. Yeah, like,
Yeah, there's no money. What are you
what
talking
money? Uh,
about?
yeah, I would say live performance was good, and then COVID happened, and then I got a bit like used to just being at home all the time. And now it's like it's been a bit of a slow getting back to actually playing enough shows.
Yeah,
Um, and I am lucky, so incredibly lucky. My wife is a software engineer, and that for sure helps. Like I'm incredibly privileged
yeah,
in that way. Um, so she's very understanding. Royalties can do well, but they take a really long time. Like I had a song in a Hallmark movie, and it was like 2 years till that showed up on my. In Canada, we have SOCAN. That's kind of our
yeah,
PRO.
yeah.
It was a long time. So you can't it's hard to count on those. Now those are sort of becoming kind of consistent, but it wasn't, so yeah, it was pretty much all
Yeah.
gigs. Yeah.
No, and thanks for sharing that, because I know a lot of people are interested in, and some people think, well, if you're a musician, you're rich, and it's like, no, not so much.
Oh no. Oh no. I mean, yeah, the good thing is it's like, you know, because of royalties, if you get a song somewhere, which is now hard to do because everybody is putting out great music, but if you get a song somewhere, you and that goes worldwide in some way, then you're collecting little tiny bits of money from all over the world, and it's being sent back to your country, and it's passive income, and that's great. But it's not gonna buy you a Lamborghini unless you have a huge, massive worldwide
Massive
hit.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you write?
Not very often, actually. I know there are a lot of people who are writing a song a day, two songs a day, sometimes if you're like in Nashville. And No, I'm probably writing like now I'm in a position, I feel like I wrote my bad songs, and now I kind of don't want to finish a song unless I really believe in it.
Yeah.
And so I'm writing a lot less often, probably like a song every couple months, to be honest. It's not
Mm,
great.
yeah.
But those songs are usually now a lot better.
Awesome.
Because I'm not bringing, if I don't have the passion for the idea behind the song, then I don't really bother. Unless I'm doing co-write, like I'll do co-writes pretty much whenever anybody wants to, because I just like, it's fun to hang out and work
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
But I don't tend to count those, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm, I mean, I think anybody would be on, like, it would be an honor to have you sing, just because your voice sounds so great. It would be cool to have somebody like you sing songs. So that's
Yeah,
great.
appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
So, where can people find your music?
Yeah, I'm on all of the places. We got the Spotify, we got the Apple Music, we got the YouTube. Those are sort of the places. And then if you come across a Ford commercial or a certain few Hallmark movies or some other kind of random shows and things, you might hear it. But yeah,
Cool.
generally Spotify has shown me the most love, I would say,
Cool.
because Spotify kind of has their algorithmic playlists, and that has really helped one day at a time kind of take off, which has been great. So I
Awesome.
tend to show my love to Spotify because they've shown me love for sure.
Yeah. Well, and anybody who's watching this and hasn't heard your music, they definitely should, because I've been listening to a bunch of the songs over the last couple of days getting ready for
Nice.
this. So it's been
Yeah,
awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And
Well,
yeah, and it's interesting. If you look me up, you will be like, boy, this guy does different things, and that is something that you struggle with as an artist. It's like, well, what is my artist identity? And it's like, well, my personality is there in all the songs. What I'm saying is there in all the songs, but the sound and the style and the vibe can vary wildly. And that's kind of, if you're a fan of me, you're along for a weird ride. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I've heard different styles, but it's still your voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still, they're still a part of you. It's kind of like when you think about Prince, like think of all the things that Prince did. It was always kind of Prince, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for, joining us here at Home Songwriting. Any parting thoughts for the people that might be watching this?
Yeah. I mean, everybody watching this is probably a songwriter. And, like we said, like, don't be scared to learn. Don't be scared to study other songs and what you love, and just write as many bad songs. Give yourself permission to write a bad song, and finish it, and then edit, make it better and better and better over time. Yeah.
Jeremy, thanks for being a guest here at Home Songwriting. I'm so appreciative of you joining and talking about your music, talking about your songwriting. Would love to have you back again. And for those of you watching, if you want more information on songwriting and to learn about the craft and all of that good stuff, make sure you check out this other video here at Home Songwriting. And if you want to join me and other songwriters for live workshops, we do monthly live meetings through our meetup group. The The link is in the description of this video, so make sure that you join us. It's 100% free. We'd love to see you. We'd love to have you join some of our song reviews and just some of the other workshops that we do. So check out this video and also join the meetup. We'll see you next time.